Is it smart to keep the house after a divorce? Hey guys, my name's Rebecca Green. I'm answering all of your biggest questions about real estate, divorce, finances. You send them in and I answer them. Today we're going to go over the question, is it smart to keep my house after a divorce? This question I'm going to take into account that the divorce has been final. Okay, the divorce is over. I own the house now. I've negotiated it. Now I'm like, okay, is this smart? And that's a really good question because more times than not, what happens is one person wants to keep the house. They're like, I want this house. My family's here. I don't want to move the kids. I don't want to move in general. My spouse has left already, so I want the house. But then I get calls from people all the time that are like, hey, I didn't want it after all. Now that I have it, doesn't feel the way that I thought it would feel. And so to answer the question, is it smart to keep the house? I think that only you know that in the divorcing process. One of the most important things that I tell people to do during a divorce is to get all of their items that they own with their spouse on a spreadsheet. These are the big ticket items like retirement, like house, like home equity, like cars, like boats, all of the things that you own together that would make an actual dent in your finances. So you get all of your items that you own together on a spreadsheet and you look at them and you do what's called an asset equalization, where you kind of divide things up and you figure out how to move forward in the divorce. Now, what happens a lot of times is divorce looks one way on paper. It looks totally different in person because a few things that are associated with a family home that people don't often think about are the non-financial pieces. Let me give you some examples. The spouse keeping the home is going to keep a lot of the friendships that you all had if you were active in your neighborhood. The spouse keeping the home may feel like around the holiday season that they've got some holiday traditions like where you put the tree and all of those things that keep up with. The spouse that keeps the home doesn't have to go through the painstaking process of finding a new place to live, having a down payment for a house. A lot of those things are taken care of for the person who keeps the home because, hey, they're just here. Now, let me tell you some negatives about keeping the home. And you're probably realizing this if you're through your divorce and you're like, oh my gosh, now what do I do with this house? So what happens when you keep the house is now you have the house. And you have, if you've owned your house for a little while and you wanted to keep it because of the interest rate, you also have deferred maintenance because as a real estate professional, what I can tell you is people typically don't keep up with their house the way that they should until they're ready to put it on the market. So if you're looking at your house and you're going, oh my gosh, the bushes look crazy, I need to have my trees trimmed, the foundation is a little bit wonky, and that's not something that you took into account whenever you negotiated with your spouse, you may be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So this is a word to the wise. If you are not divorced yet, you're in the middle of a divorce, one of the most important things that you can do is get an inspection on the home prior to agreeing to a payout price with your spouse. The reason that's important is for you and for them. I have had clients who didn't do inspections and they ended up divorced, and all of a sudden they realized they had big foundation issues. Or the furnace went out for this one lady and she's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And she tried to charge her husband for it and he was like, bro, I'm out. You should have had that inspected. It was an old furnace, whatever, but you fought for the house. Now it's yours. That's what happens after a divorce is people go, your problem, not mine. And so whenever you're divorcing, if you're wanting to keep the house, make sure you do a full inspection on it so that everybody knows the actual value of the property. There's the price that it would sell for if you did all of the repairs. Because if I was your real estate agent and I come in and we're going to list the house for sale, this is also good, I'm probably going to have a list of a few things that a buyer's going to want to have done. And you as a couple would pay for those, usually splitting it 50-50. If you keep the house and you haven't done any of those items or had a formal inspection from a professional on what items need to be done, then you're just stuck with them. And the spouse got the equity of the house and you're now stuck paying the bills for those things that, in theory, they probably should have split 50-50. So if you're at the end of this and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even want this house anyway, that makes total sense because there are a lot of things that happen after a divorce. Once the emotions settle, you're sitting there on the couch and all the memories start coming back about the happy times with your spouse in the house or the sad times with your spouse in the house. And there's some real emotional trauma that can come up where you're like, oh, this doesn't feel how I want it to anymore. You're watching your spouse move on with someone else or with a new house or with a new life. Meanwhile, you're living the same life just without them. And whether or not you move on and there's new partners in it, there's a lot associated with that. Something else that people don't often think about whenever it comes to keeping the home in a divorce is all the stuff. And I'm going to pause here because I'm going to tell a little bit of a personal story. I moved in with my fiance. We sold my house in the neighborhood. My kids and I moved in, just worked out logistically the best. And he and I spent months going through every room in the house, every closet in the house. His ex-wife had moved out, bought a house. Everything was good relationship-wise. But we had the task of going through the entire family home because whenever partner A leaves, the out spouse leaves, they're not going through the storage room. They're not going through the cabinets. They're not going through the garage. Meanwhile, they move into a new place with all their new stuff. It's shiny and pretty. And you are, as the house spouse, left with a lot of the mess. You're left with the old stuff that nobody wanted. You're left with renting a dumpster. There are lots of costs associated with keeping a home in a divorce. And if you're all the way through this at the end of it and going like, oh, I don't like how this feels, it makes total sense why you would feel that way. Now you have the problem of deciding, do you want to continue to keep the house, or do you want to call a real estate professional, see how much the house is worth and what it might look like to start over? Those are all really good questions, and I'm super glad you're asking. I can tell you that the best thing you can probably do is reach out to a real estate professional. If you don't know somebody who specializes in divorce in your area, I'm in Missouri and Kansas, a licensed agent here. And so if you don't know somebody who's a licensed agent in your area and you want me to do some research, I have a really good network of agents that I trust who are skilled at these conversations and can walk you through that. So hopefully that answers your question, and keep sending them in.